Coming up, we speak with an iconic artist who was massive in the 60s into the 70s. He had 6 top 5 hits, including 2 that went to number 1. And then in the 80s, 2 different artists took 2 of his former hits to number 1 in one of the least expected comebacks ever. Up next, this icon, he tells us the story of one of those songs that just keeps coming back. It's been a hit in 4 different decades. It hit number 1 in the 80s by a popular artist who had never even heard of him. Both tell us a story on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you're over the moon about all things music, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel, be a part of this community so you don't miss an episode. Story straight from the legends. Make sure to click the bell so you don't miss out. I'm excited to bring you another episode from our series, Revelations, where featured artists reveal rare stories about their biggest albums, their biggest songs, along with fascinating insight about their careers. Now, in this installment of Revelations, we put a true smash hit under the microscope. It went to number 4 in 1967 from Tommy James and the Shondells. And then, unexpectedly, in 1987, it went all the way to number 1. This is when Tiffany remade it. I interviewed both of them for this breakdown, so you're really going to get a behind-the-scenes look. The song has been used in a couple of horror films, actually. Maybe that's because it just keeps coming back from the dead. It went to the top 5 in the UK for the band Girls Aloud. That was in 2006. And then Billie Joe Armstrong took it to the top 10 on the alternative rock charts recently.
Think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anyone.
Tommy James and Tiffany give us the story of really one of the catchiest ditties ever. Tiffany survived what we 80s kids remember as the ancient teen bop war of 1987, Debbie versus Tiffany.
Shake your love, I just want shake your love. Shake your love, we're alone now. Doesn't seem to be anyone.
Stick around, even if you're not a fan, because it's such an interesting story. Now, this episode is sponsored by Zenni Eyewear, the brand of glasses that I jam daily. If you need a pair of glasses or sunglasses, Zenni's the only choice. You create your look, you put in your prescription, and you pay less than a vinyl record. They deliver them to your door. You're going to be amazed. Check it out today. Here's Tommy and Tiffany. All of a sudden, you invent a whole new genre with bubblegum with I Think We're Alone Now.
Yeah, we didn't mean to.
I know.
It was an accident. I Think We're Alone Now really gave me such an education that I could have never had with any other song. And the reason is we'd had 3 hits before that. We had a Hanky Panky. Say I Am. And It's Only Love. 3 gold records. At that moment, Richie Cordell and Bo Gentry, who were Kama Sutra songwriters. And by the way, I was so grateful that Roulette allowed me the freedom to put a production team together and to bring people from other labels, because they were really locked in the late 50s. But they sold singles. They knew how to sell records. And, allowed me to put this massive team together. Bo and Richie started it off, and they brought me I Think We're Alone Now. And it was a ballad, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it was slow, but you could hear it was a smash. As soon as he played the hook. They played it on a piano, and didn't matter what you played it on. You knew it was a hit record.
And you had the idea to not only speed it up, but to raise the key from G to A, right?
No, that's true. And we went in, did a demo, and Bo sang the lead, and I went in, played the guitar, and that's where we came up with the 8th notes. Dum, 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 dum.
That pulsating bass
Yeah,
line,
and
the
it became
staccato.
a signature. And we didn't mean for it to. It was just something we did on the demo. When we then took it back to roulette, Morris Levy flips out. That's a freaking hit. So we went back in the studio, did the same arrangement. One of the things I learned was the art of making records for AM radio. What I learned is the old adage, less is more.
Right.
Something's going to fill up the radio speaker. The more instruments you add, the smaller every instrument is. And plus the compressors and the limiters on
Yep.
radio. When we were doing I Think We're Alone Now, first of all, we started layering, doing the bass and the drums first, then the guitar. We started layering things. We hadn't done that. And then I brought in Jimmy Wisner, who was a world-class arranger. We learned a real amazing lesson. We weren't writing songs, we were writing records. Suddenly the intro had to be so long because the DJ talked over it. The record couldn't be any longer than 3 minutes because they had to get so many spots on the air. And so there are all these radio rules that happened. We did accidentally with Hanky Panky, but we really learned with I Think We're Alone Now. And we had the signature sound that later got called bubblegum.
What would they say if they ever knew?
Controversial at the time too, because of the giving the atmosphere of forbidden activities and all that. The radio.
Well, true enough, they banned our album cover. They said I Think We're Alone Now was a dirty record. Meanwhile, the number one record at the top, it was Let's Spend the Night Together by the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
But that started this production team of Richie and Bo and Jimmy and Allegro, and we had 10 more hits with them.
Well, Lena Lovitch covers it in '78.
There doesn't seem to be anyone around.
That was a great cover, but massive worldwide resurgence in the '80s.
We're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anyone.
1987, of course, Tiffany and Debbie Gibson start this huge teen pop kind of thing that was going on.
Only in my dreams. We're alone now. Doesn't seem to be anyone.
George Tobin gave you a cassette with the song I Think We're Alone Now on it. And I always read, because I always used to listen to the Top 40 Countdown each week, and Casey Kasem would always tell the stories behind the songs.
Right.
I love that. I'd write them down and I'd just memorize them. But the story I heard is that you were like, I don't know about this song because
I was, yeah.
Didn't know if that was the right covering it, thinking the song, I don't know, was this hip? Was it modern enough?
I had never heard I Think We're Alone Now before. Didn't know of Tommy James and the Shondells. If I had, I didn't really make the connection. George said, well, just learn the song. So I did learn the song, came back the next day, and it was all this dance track. But for me, I was a little worried about getting typed as a dance artist. I mean, George sat down and he said, listen, you got to trust me on this. Really, I think this will work. And it did.
I think we're alone now. Doesn't seem to be anyone.
Let's talk about the first album, the recorded for MCA, which the iconic album cover. That was an album that your first single, Danny, didn't chart.
Danny with your aim, Danny for my heart.
Right.
And then he had the idea of the mall tour, shopping mall tour. That was kind of a brilliant idea
Yeah,
for that
that's
moment.
where I hung out. I mean, it made total
Oh,
sense.
yeah.
Danny, the single, was released. That was the first single, and it wasn't doing well at radio. And that's when George decided to just totally change it and put on I Think We're Alone Now.
Children behave. That's what they say when we're together.
And that started getting traction because there probably wouldn't have been a mall tour without that happening first.
Yeah.
And, he had some radio connections and pretty much as a friend said, spin this. I'm doing this rogue without the labels, consent, but this is the wrong single. I knew it was the wrong single. It's really, I Think We're Alone Now. So they started testing it on a favor and we started getting people calling in. And then they started to have to add the song because there was so many people calling in. And then that led to the mall tour. How do we save this project? Because really my whole album was going to be shelved. I was doing clubs in New York. I wasn't even old enough to be in the club. So the music was doing great, but nobody could get to know me. I couldn't really go out and sign autographs or hang out. So it was out the door I went. And that was really tanking. You know, you have to do the whole thing. You have to be able to talk to the people and get to know them. And I had nothing in common with 21-year-olds or even 18-year-olds at that time. So my project was going to be tanked. And through the momentum of I Think We're Alone Now, I think that's what really started my A&R guy, Larry Salters, going, okay, this can't happen. We are making some progress, but where would we show this artist? And he was walking around a mall one day with his daughter and thought, what about the malls? When it came to me, I said, yeah, that makes the most sense because that's where I hung out all the time. I mean, I grew up in Norwalk, California. I might have $5 on me, you know, between me and my girlfriend, we might have $5 on us. But back then, you could go and share an Orange Julius, which was my favorite drink. And all you did is go to the record store.
1987, when I Think We're Alone Now came out, I mean, number 1 in the US and Canada and Ireland, New Zealand,
I know.
the UK, South
Bigger than I ever
Africa.
thought.
I know. That goes to number 1 on the pop charts.
Well,
all
and
over the world.
Billy Idol and Tiffany, they went up the charts like they were holding hands.
Well, when it hit number 1, what's cool, you were in the top 5 at that moment with Fleetwood Mac when it was at
It's
number 1.
exciting,
Wasn't
I
that
know.
cool? So you hit number 1, you were 16, you recorded it when you were 13. Madonna, Michael Jackson, Fleetwood Mac, and Billy Idol all in the top 5
Yes.
with you, which incidentally, Billy Idol's Money Money, and
Yes.
I Think We're Alone Now. When I was talking to Tom, he's like, yeah, that was a good moment for me.
Yep, that was a good moment.
Went back to back number 1. That had never happened. Billy, of course, had Money Money.
Tiffany with I
had
Think We're Alone Now.
Yeah.
Think we're alone now. It doesn't seem to be any.
I Think We're Alone Now, when she covered it, it was not only a huge hit here, but it went number 1 in New Zealand and Canada and Ireland,
Yeah.
and number 1 in the dance charts. I mean,
You know, she came up to me and apologized. And I said, apologize? I said, are you kidding? No, what, are you apologizing for number 1? Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
Think we're alone now. Giving up our arms is the only.
your approach to the song, though, you brought so much energy to it. Because I love Tommy's version, but it's a 60s, and that happened a lot
Which
in
is
the 80s.
still cool.
It
See, I
is.
rock out to that version now.
Yeah. I mean,
So I
it's
love
just
Tommy
a different
James.
tempo, a different time, and radio was different in the way that people listen to
Right.
things. But that was what was great is they took a lot of 60s songs like Kim Wilde, Keep
Oh,
You Hanging
yeah.
On.
But you keep me hanging on. You just keep me hanging on. Now you
And they had all these hits again with Moni Moni.
Moni
and
Moni.
Speaking of another Tommy
Yeah.
James song, but
come now, say moaning, moaning. So right, it's alright.
and yours is just a little more punchy, and it has that 80s feel to it.
Look at the way. Look at the way. We gotta hide.
They're great songs. All these
Yeah.
songs that we've mentioned are good songs. And when you have a great song, it can be reworked. It can be done with an acoustic guitar. It can be done punk version.
Think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anyone.
I've done I Think We're Alone Now, punk, ska. You know, I've done it like all dance. And now I've remade the song again and revamped it a little bit for what I'm doing currently, which is a little bit more of a Foo Fighters kind of sound, a little bit with those layered guitars.
Doesn't seem to be anyone alright.
You had a little bit of sass in that song with your
Yeah.
vocal, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean,
It
it's
wasn't-
cool. People see the new vocal and they go, well, it's weird because they're listening to the new I Think We're Alone Now, and I get compliments on singing that song now, which is the most bizarre thing, but I'm happy. I'm like, okay, well, we've accomplished all my goals in one song with the original hit.
I think we're alone now. Doesn't seem to be anyone alright.
Well, speaking of Salt Lake City, it was a program director here that really gave it its
Yes.
big start.
Yes.
It was Lou Simon, right?
Yes.
KCPX, I think it was. Yeah, KCPX. And he heard heard the album, thought it was a hit, and then his DJ, Morgan Evans, played it. Calls came in. They had to add it. Everybody else started adding it. And that inspired him to have MCA, release it as a 45.
Release it, yes.
But he had to
definitely.
get him the numbers and
Had to
show,
get him,
right?
Exactly. And that was all George behind the, having those relationships. That's why we did the Ogden Mall. And brought it full circle again. This is where it all started. Thank you so much. Because it really was the fans that were calling in, requesting the song.
Totally.
I mean, had it not been for the fans all along, and people.
Well, that video that she did playing malls, which was a brilliant idea,
I
actually.
know.
And I still have a belief now with that as I've continued my career. It's only by doing it in front of people that love music, that are attached to you. They know what they want to hear. So I start with that now. And I love social media now for that reason. Because I can get things out to people's hands
And
immediately.
you can get their
Once I
feedback.
have excitement, I go back and talk to the powers that be and go, well, this is the homework I've come up with. And there's nothing like it. And we were doing that even back, in the 80s.
Pop culture, it's lived on from
Right.
its biggest days of popularity. It's even as big now with the Goldbergs when it was used there. What did you think of that?
The song keeps having its own little life, which is
Yeah.
great.
And the biggest star of them all was Tiffany. No last name needed.
They're like capturing the 80s, right? And what
Exactly.
it was like growing up there. And they nailed it because
They nailed it.
80s kids, we remember
I'm a huge
that.
fan of the Goldbergs.
I know,
So
isn't
when
that
I was
great?
incorporated with that, I was like, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And
Yeah.
Ted. Ted was extremely funny to me, like the whole scene and everything. I got a little creeped out, but it was funny. Umbrella Academy, loved all the dance moves. And it was right on time. I mean, for me, I was already releasing the song. Then that happened like the month before I did it. And it was like, this could be even more perfect. It's just the universe telling me, yes, girl.
You're doing it.
You're doing the right thing. Because sometimes you don't know. You do things from your heart.
Do you like it when Weezer referenced it in their song?
I saw
Heart
that,
songs?
and I love that as well.
Tell me that you think we're all alone.
Oh, it's
The
all right.
band Weezer,
No, I
yeah.
didn't
But they
know that.
mistakenly referenced Debbie Gibson instead of Tiffany, but they left it in. But just to show how big that song was, even that resurgence punk version by Snuff.
Did you hear the Killers do it?
Girls Aloud did it. That went to number 4 in the UK. Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, another punk rock band that did it. But what was cool is that Weird Al did I Think I'm a Clone Now.
He was great, what?
Oh, that's incredible.
See, listen, that's how you know you've really made it.
When Weird Al does
Yes.
your song. It's been featured in
The,
horror movies like The Cape Fear, of course, in
Right.
91.
I think we're alone now.
10 Cloverfield Lane.
Right.
That was amazing.
That's a heck of a movie.
But I want to say one last thing about this song that's incredible is that Bo Gentry accidentally inserted it backwards in the reel-to-reel.
Oh,
And it plays it, and it's going backwards.
what
Tell me
happened
about
was
that.
we were listening to the final mix of I Think We're Alone Now over at Bo's apartment. And, everybody was smoking way too much weed back then. What can I say? And they put the tape on upside down. It was a little reel to reel, 7.5. And when you do that, it plays backwards. We're listening to I Think We're Alone Now backwards and going, that's not a bad chord progression. Bo and Richie go over and write it, and it becomes Mirage. That sounds like it was made up by a press agent, but that's the honest to God's truth.
That's an amazing story.
Mirage was I Think We're Alone Now backwards.
I've seen punk bands. I've seen all kinds of different bands perform I Think We're Alone Now in the oddest ways, but I love it. And I always get these videos from people around the world
Yeah.
literally going, doing your song tonight. And they'll message me, and I think it's great, you know? Even little kids. I had one just with his dad was playing acoustic guitar, and there was this little boy. He was only 6 years old. He had the sweetest voice, and he was singing, "I Think We're Alone Now." And he had a little shake every time he sang the chorus, and I thought I've kept it for all these years, you know? And I just thought it was the cutest thing to see. Younger people, you know, getting introduced to the song, as well as the stories of people who lived it with Tommy James and the Shondells. So I think We're Alone has this big, huge life that I'm always a part of, and I'm grateful.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about this song and Tommy James and Tiffany below. What do you remember about this classic song and the classic Debbie versus Tiffany battle of the 80s where you Team Debbie, Team Tiffany? Tommy, what a star. So many hits. Tell us about that. Make sure to subscribe below so you never miss our content. Check us out on Patreon. Check out our merch. Both of these things help us keep the music alive, and that's really the only reason we're here, is to keep telling these stories. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.